You were made to feel like a glitch in the system, a flaw, something that annoyed her just by existing. When your world was crumbling inside and all you needed was someone to stay, she bailed. No fuss, no explanation. Poof, gone like swiping away a spam email. She used you as an emotional punching bag, a quick fix for her insecurities, a ladder to prop up her ego. And when you stopped being useful, tossed aside. No warning, no mercy. She threw you out like a good man was recyclable garbage. In her mind, love that's real, love that's ready, is a sign of weakness. You showed up whole, willing, all in, and she freaked. Because a broken woman doesn't recognize stability, she sees it as a threat. You offered what no one else could, peace in the storm, and she called you needy, over the top, laughed at your heart like it was some cheap knockoff she'd never valued. Guess what? Now she's scrambling to fill the void with shallow stand-ins, chasing the depth only you brought to the table. Good luck with that. This video's about how her rejection was actually your freedom. How the pain of being discarded handed you the greatest gift. The realization that you deserve better than groveling for scraps of love. Hold up. Before we dive deeper, here's the deal. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop "I'm awake" in the comments. This isn't just a video, it's a wake-up call disguised as a script. If it's hitting you where it hurts, give it some love. Truth only spreads when you help it travel. Take a deep breath, because now it's time to settle the score. Number 1, the love she begged for, but couldn't handle. She screamed from the rooftops that she wanted real love. Done with games, tired of empty promises, and guys with the emotional depth of a kiddie pool. She craved someone present, honest, steady, a walking miracle. Then you showed up. Calm, real, heart wide open, soul laid bare. Everything she claimed she'd been praying for between her meltdowns. But here's the kicker. Some people beg for light but live so deep in the dark they go blind when it shows up. She was so used to chaos that peace felt like a snooze fest. Stability? She called it weakness. When you came in all in, she looked at you like you were some kind of over-the-top inconvenience. Let's be real, love takes work, and she just wanted a shiny new toy to play with. She tested you like a crash dummy, poked at you to see if you'd snap, pushed you to test your limits. She wanted to replay her same old tired script with a new cast. But you weren't some extra in her drama. You didn't crawl for crumbs or beg for a spotlight, and just like that, without even realizing it, she burned the one guy who was actually ready to stick around. Now she gets it. Too bad. Regret doesn't come with an undo button. Number 2, she ghosted you because you were too grown for her childish games. You didn't play hard to get. No cheap mind games or emotional hide and seek. You were straight up, present, ready to build something real. To someone addicted to chaos, that's straight up lunacy. She was hooked on the roller coaster of deadbeat dudes, where silence is a turn on and absence screams passion. Then you rolled in, clear as a sunny day, and she froze. The problem was never you being too much. The problem was her only knowing how to deal with broken guys who couldn't spell feelings. She was fluent in drama, a pro at emotional blackmail, with a PhD in ghosting at the height of affection. But you were whole. You didn't need fixing, and that threw her for a loop. So, like the self-saboteur she was, she tried to drag you down to the mess she knew. Stirred up drama where there was none. Planted doubts where you'd only offered certainty. Sprinkled jealousy just to see if she could crack your sanity. But you didn't take the bait. You didn't dance to her tune. And just like that, you lost your sparkle in her eyes. Not because you lacked heart, but because your love was too grown for an emotional toddler who thinks attention equals adrenaline. You weren't a challenge, and for someone who thrives on chaos, peace is unbearable. Number 3, the truth she hid from herself and buried deep. She never claimed you, never pounded her chest and said, "He's the one I want." But she didn't let you go either. Not out of love, don't kid yourself, but out of convenience. You were her emotional satellite, orbiting her life. When she felt shaky, you were her backup. When her ego needed a boost, you were her 24/7 emotional ER. The almost she kept on speed dial when her nobodies let her down, and she had the nerve to say she didn't know how she felt. Bull. She knew exactly who you were, knew you were different, deep, real, everything she wasn't ready to face. Because to have you for real, she'd have to step off her high horse, confront her baggage, and ditch the teenage mind games. She'd have to grow up. Guess what? She didn't want to. She wanted to love on her terms when it suited her mood. She wanted to ghost and reappear like nothing happened. Wanted to hurt you without consequences, push your buttons without owning the fallout. But you didn't fit in her circus. You didn't settle for scraps, didn't grovel for a supporting role in her soap opera. And that, for someone who feeds on control, was unbearable. So instead of owning her cowardice, she took the easy way out. Painted you as too much, too intense, too devoted, too present. When deep down, the truth is she was too little courage to be real, too little depth to connect for real, too little maturity to hold up the love she kept begging the universe for. She didn't lose you because you were hard to handle. She lost you because she was too weak to deserve you. Number 4, the day you stopped chasing and she felt the void hit her chest. You got fed up, not with loving you were a pro at that. Fed up with being treated like an optional add-on, a backup plan she used when life let her down. Fed up with spelling out the obvious to someone who played dumb to dodge accountability. With pouring out attention only to get silence in return. With proving your worth to someone who offered nothing but shaky vibes and an inflated ego. She broke things on purpose, your spirit, your patience, your faith, and still expected you to patch it all up with a smile. Promised changes that never came, teased improvements that lasted until her next emotional crash. And you, with your big-ass heart, stood there waiting for someone who couldn't even decide what she wanted for breakfast, let alone in life. Then one ordinary day, no grand finale, no tearful speech, you just stopped. Done. No fanfare, no warning, no last chance. Your silence was your roar. And what a roar. She didn't get it. Thought it was just another one of your he'll be back moments. Except this time you didn't. Something in you flipped a switch. The part of you that still believed in her, that rooted for her to change, that clung to hope with gritted teeth. It died. Smothered by her indifference, crushed by empty promises, buried under a mountain of one-sided effort. And when you stopped, she felt it. Not regret panic. Because she realized she lost the one guy who didn't demand perfection, status, or flash. Just the basics, respect and truth. But it was too late. Because when a real man stops, he doesn't come back the same. If he comes back at all. And usually he doesn't even glance over his shoulder. Listen up, champ. Tired of being her fancy doormat? The nice guy who gets screwed while she treats some loser like royalty? Enough of that nonsense. The world doesn't respect a pushover. Time to flip this rigged game. Down in the description, there's an ebook that doesn't coddle you. It shows you how to break free, stop begging for scraps, and become the damn prize. You'll learn to be the challenge, the guy who commands respect without shouting, who doesn't bow to someone else's neediness. And most importantly, who isn't afraid to walk away from someone who never deserved you. Want to keep playing the maybe she'll change fool? Be my guest, but if you're ready to be treated like a real man, the time is now. Number 5, the silence that hits harder than 1,000 fights. You didn't yell, didn't cry in her face, didn't beg for understanding or try to prove a point. You just did the one thing she never saw coming. You went quiet. And that silence, man, it was like dynamite blowing up the foundation of her emotional theater. She was ready for your drama, your desperate texts, your pathetic attempts to explain what she refused to get. She expected another scene, another apology you didn't owe, another stab at fixing her mess. But this time, nothing. No reply, no chase. Not even a shadow of the guy she thought she could string along with a "hey stranger" weeks after torching everything. That's when the panic set in. Because your silence wasn't absence, it was judgment. The end of her recycled script. Your freedom, and hers too, but without an audience, excuses, or applause. For the first time, she was face to face with her own reflection. No noise to drown out the lies she told herself, the game she played, the feelings she faked. Your silence was her mirror, and it wasn't pretty. She tried to fill the void with pride, distractions, the delusion that you were replaceable. But none of it silenced the echo of your absence, because when you went quiet, what rang loud was the sound of her choices. The truth she dodged. She didn't lose you. She threw away something she didn't know how to value. And now she's stuck with regret no amount of apologies can fix. Your silence? That was your ultimate act of self-love, and the first step into her emotional hell. Number 6, the wound. She'll never heal, and we'll have to live with. Sure, she'll move on, or at least fake it like a pro. She'll flood her feed with forced smiles, cheesy self-help quotes she doesn't believe, and that tired, "I'm living my best life" spiel. She'll hook up with a handful of nobodies, drink too much, laugh too loud to drown out her conscience, and swear to everyone and herself that she's over it. But the truth? It's still there, festering like an internal bleed she can't stop. Because you weren't just another guy. You were the wake-up call, the reality check, the outlier who showed her what real love looks like, the kind that doesn't manipulate, doesn't fake it, doesn't bail, the kind that stays even when everything says to leave. You gave her what she never knew how to give: devotion, patience, truth. And the worst part? She figured it out, but only after you stopped trying. When you finally chose yourself over begging for her scraps, that's when it hit. And it hit like a punch to the gut. Because she realized, way too late, that she lost something you don't find twice in a lifetime. And she did it with her own poison. She could have had the world. Instead, she played with fire, and now she's burning inside. No matter how much she denies it, drowns herself in distractions, or hides behind new faces, the truth will always be there. In the quiet of the night, in the comparisons she can't help but make, in the memories that creep back like ghosts when life demands honesty. She knows. You are the exception, and there's no emotional painkiller strong enough to numb the regret of letting go of the one who stayed. That wound, it'll bleed forever, hidden behind pride, masked as a new chapter. But inside, it's rotting. Number 7, the day you chose yourself and stopped being her emotional punching bag. It wasn't ego. It wasn't coldness. It was raw survival instinct. You realized you were fading away, dragging yourself through a relationship where only you were breathing, trying to grow flowers in dead soil while she couldn't even be bothered to water them. And then, in the chaos, between the exhaustion grinding you down and the clarity you were scared to face, it happened. You woke up. It hit you like a ton of bricks. No one was coming to save you. The love you thought you had was a warped reflection of yourself, always you, trying, bending, loving alone while she played hot and cold. And even with your heart in pieces, you did the unthinkable. You stopped betraying yourself, stopped shrinking to fit her fragile ego, stopped trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see value staring her in the face. That toxic hope you carried, mistaking attachment for love, finally shattered. In the silence you chose, in that void that felt like despair but was freedom in disguise, you were reborn, stronger, wiser, more you. Because when a man truly chooses himself, he doesn't get lost in anyone else ever again. Let her keep the emotional scraps she worshipped. You're whole now, and whole doesn't beg for half of anything. Number 8, when the tables turned, and she finally felt what it's like to miss someone who's done missing her. She thought you'd be there forever, that she could ghost for a week, pop back with a "hey, stranger," and you'd be right where she left you. She could step on you, poke at you, leave you on red, and you'd still be there, like some emotional puppy waiting for a pat on the head. She mistook your patience for weakness, your consistency for neediness, your devotion for desperation. She thought you were predictable, and you were until you weren't, because the tables turned. And she wasn't ready for it. When she realized you weren't picking up, weren't replying, weren't there to soak up her emotional baggage anymore. That's when the real panic hit. For the first time, she felt what absence feels like. For the first time, she tasted the silence you'd lived with for so long. She learned what it's like to stare at a phone with no notifications, to dig through memories, trying to pinpoint where she lost the upper hand. But it wasn't one moment, it was all of them. Every time she treated you like you were disposable, every smirk at your pain, every time she ignored your effort like it was your job to try alone. Now the emptiness is hers, the waiting is hers, the doubt is hers, and the punishment, it's daily. Because the game may have flipped, but the worst part for her is knowing you're not even playing anymore. You left the game, and you left victorious. Her? She's stuck holding the trophy for destroying the only one who played fair. Number 9, the silence that screams louder than any words and crushes the pride of someone who thought they'd never lose. You didn't stoop low, didn't yell, didn't make a scene, didn't beg for answers. You just vanished, quietly, with dignity. And that silence, that razor-sharp absence, screamed louder than every "I love you" you ever wasted. She took your presence for granted, like air, invisible, guaranteed, essential. When you stopped replying, stopped chasing, stopped trying to explain what she never bothered to understand, that's when her real nightmare began. Because your silence wasn't running away, it was closure. The period she never thought you'd have the guts to write. And the worst part, she didn't get a chance to fight it. Silence doesn't argue. Silence just hits. And hers was the loudest sound to ever rattle that inflated ego that thought it could have you whenever it wanted. She tried to stir the pot, threw out bait, made drama with no audience. But nothing happened. Because you were gone. Not just physically, you checked out emotionally. Took your attention with you. Took your best and left behind only what she sowed. Nothing. Now every day you don't respond is a fresh cut. Every absence is a brutal reminder she lost the privilege of your love. Because yes, it was a privilege. You were there by choice, by love, by devotion. And she treated it like an obligation. But now, out of self-love, you're gone. And that silence, it'll scream in her head until regret becomes the soundtrack to every sleepless night. Number 10, when you stopped explaining, and she finally had to face what she pretended not to see. You poured out your time, your soul, your patience, trying to be understood, explaining every silence, every step back, every shift in your eyes. You wanted her to see what was obvious. You were drained, carrying a relationship on your back while she played victim and judge. But she didn't want to get it. Never did. Because as long as you kept explaining, she held the reins. As long as you justified your pain, she could prop up her ego. As long as you juggled her chaos, she could sit pretty on her throne of reason. Then you stopped. Stopped explaining. Stopped justifying. Stopped humiliating yourself to be heard by someone who only listened when it suited her. And in that silence she never saw coming, the shock hit. Your silence became a mirror, not of you begging anymore of her. Raw, unfiltered, no narrative to hide behind. It showed the destructive version she built. The woman who pushes away, sabotages, crushes the one who only wanted to stay. Now she gets it. Too late, of course. Because the silence you left isn't a pause, it's a period. When a man stops explaining, it's because he realized talking to an emotional brick wall is a waste of soul. It's shouting into a void, hoping for an echo. You didn't vanish to hide. You disappeared because you finally saw your presence wasn't valued, it was used. And in that nothing you left, in the void where she thought you'd come crawling back, she heard everything. The abandonment she planted, the disappointment she ignored, and above all, the silence that says, without mercy, now the one who's done is me. Final word. Now she's the one screaming, and you're the one staying quiet and smirking inside. Of course she'll try. When the late-night loneliness outweighs her ego, when her room feels too big for someone who thought she was larger than life, she'll crack. She'll send that weak, "Hey," text. Like an old photo, like it's code for, "Remember me?" Throw out some lame excuse to knock on the door she slammed shut. But now, you don't open it. Because a door scarred by her disrespect doesn't deserve a key. And when she realizes her charms lost its juice, that your silence isn't a game, it's a choice, she'll crumble. She'll come with rehearsed speeches, cheap accusations, guilt trips. Say you've changed, gone cold. But nah, you've just become a man. A man who knows dignity isn't traded for crumbs of affection. You figured out the problem was never love, it was the imbalance, the manipulation, the addiction to making you chase while she ran just to feel wanted. And you chased until you ran out of patience, until one day, you stopped. And the second you did, her whole game fell apart. Because she didn't know how to handle a man who doesn't beg. Today, she feels your absence like losing her own mirror. Because she used you to validate herself. Your presence gave her purpose. And now, without you, she's staring at her own void. The hole she tried to fill with control and games. And failed. You don't need to say a word. No revenge. No expose. Because the loudest response is the silence that hits harder than 1,000 truths screamed out loud. You don't go back. Don't reply. Don't try. You watch and move on. Because you learn to love yourself more than the urge to save someone who never wanted saving. That was your final lesson. Sometimes love means walking away, and you did. Upright, silent, and at peace.